wanted the best? You've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hey folks, Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. For over 16 years and 2,300 episodes, we bring you the Chris Voss Show. All the most amazing people in the world, the CEOs, the billionaires, White House presidential advisors, the Pulitzer Prize winners, all the smartest people. You've seen them on all the wonderful news channels around the world, and we bring them to you here for the most amazing stories, the journeys of their life, et cetera, they share with you so that you can do better and know better and all that good stuff. So we've got an amazing young man on the show with us today. Rob Tillman is going to be joining us on the show. His book is called Shamelessly Unignorable, The Playbook. And we're going to get into some of the details of what he does and how he does them there. Rob, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing super fantastic. How about yourself, Chris?
I am doing excellent as well. Give us your .coms. Where do you want people to find you on the interwebs?
The easiest.com, robtillman.com, Rob, ROBTILLMAN.com. Or if they're interested in the book, after we talk a little bit about that, then that's shamelesslyignorable.com. And it's just a easy page. They're selling you nothing. It just has a waiting list for everybody to get on that thing.
There you go. Shamelessly Unignorable, the playbook. Less talented, skilled, and experienced competition like me uses to land the jobs, clients, and contracts you deserve, and how to apply it for yourself. So give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside that new book?
Well, the easiest way to describe that book is taking away everybody's frustration, because there are really two kinds of people in the world. There are people who get super frustrated. They cuss, fuss, and stomp around mad every time they see someone who's less talented, experienced, getting a job or getting a client or getting a contract. And then there's that other person who says, how can I figure out what they're doing so I can apply because I'm more talented, more skilled, and more experienced?
And it's definitely an interesting job market right now. It's April of 2025. There's lots of government layoffs that are going on through the new administration. There might be a recession coming down the road from some of the tariffs we're seeing. And so people need to be prepared to be able to enter the job market and some of the different issues they have to deal with. Can you outline some of those?
Well, the easiest way to understand it is right now there's a three-dimensional problem that everybody's facing. So the first problem is what you talked about, like the layoffs. Now, I'm apolitical, so I'm not talking about whether things are good or bad or indifferent. They just are. But the fact is that there are massive layoffs happening all around the place. So within the government, then current numbers show, I just checked that thing out, and it there shows something tracking close to about 136,000 government employees are now out looking for jobs, 59,000 which were laid off, and other ones had voluntary. And then you have tech layoffs, and there were about, coming in from last year, almost 180,000 of those. Then you look in the private sector, 275,000 year to date of those people are all entering the job force. So that's one piece of it. So you think about a three-dimensional, think about a triangle, and that's one lower piece of that point. The other piece of that point is there are fewer jobs. With everything happening with AI and automation, then there are actually a lot of jobs that are being completely eviscerated. They're being wiped off the earth, never to return. So you have all of these people entering the job market, and there are fewer jobs for them. And there's another piece of this puzzle that's actually harder for the people to understand, which is, so they think, well, I could always do freelancing because that's what everybody's been taught. Hey, you know what? Right now, just go work for yourself, be a solopreneur or freelancer. However, all of that's also getting harder and harder and harder to do because there's so many people rushing in, and there's such a problem, which I like to call imposter markets, that they're facing.
Imposter markets they're facing. How do you define that?
So imposter markets, they've always existed since the beginning of time. Imposter markets are when you're in a field and there are people who are lying about their credentials or how good they are, and they're competing with you. And if there's no way for you to prove who you are, then they don't know if you're lying as well. I mean, think about ChatGPT now. And we always joke about the fact that it lies. But what most people do is they now go to ChatGPT and say, make me a killer resume, make me a killer pitch, make me a killer proposal. And that thing puts it together. They grab it, copy it, paste it, shoot it out. And very little of it is true. So the people who are real, they're fighting against a tidal wave of imposters in these markets that flood it and make them get drowned out.
There you go. Yeah, ChatGPT has been the way to do just about everything when it comes to some of that. And you always when you saw people's resumes, you always had to interview across them because I can't tell you how many times I've been across the table from someone. I'm like, so it looks like in June June to July, of 2 or 3 years, whatever, you worked at IBM, and they're like, no, I didn't. And you're like, but you've written it on your resume. And they're like, no, I didn't. And you're like, no, it's on your resume.
Exactly.
And then you start finding out their timelines don't match up because they got fired or they embezzled or, I even had one guy, he had 2 years missing from his resume. And most people wouldn't ask about it. So no one noticed except for me. When I saw it, I was like, there's 2 years missing on your resume. And he's like, no, there's not. And I'm like, no, there is. I'm looking at your resume. He's like, let me see it. I'm like, you don't know what's on your resume?
It's crazy.
He'd gone to prison for 2 years for stealing
Oh my
copper.
goodness. Ooh, I have a story just like that too, but I'm not going to jump into that one. I'll just jump into the simple fact that I've been on the hiring side for almost 30 years. You call me a young guy, but I'm definitely not on the young side of this thing. I've been almost 30 years in this world of getting people jobs or being the guy who actually worked his way all the way up to, and this really where I talk about, like in the movie, I'm not in the movie, but in the book, talking about like me, everybody asks, how are you able to get these jobs? I'm literally the boss of people who have incredible, they have Stanford degrees, they have degrees from like Caltech, they have crazy things going on in their life. And they're like, how in the world is it you? And I kept telling them, it's because you're leaning too much on the wrong things. And outside of myself and using these techniques, then I've been able to, over all these years, help so many friends and family and coworkers. And then I finally started to take it out to more of the world. And right now, there's so many people who need it because this thing is changing really fast. They need to understand how these imposter markets are destroying them and all the things they keep doing, which are completely the opposite of how we on that hiring side of things look at things.
And you hear so many people, talk about how they send hundreds of resumes off to people. I mean, I just think of the work. I mean, I've worked for myself since I was 18, but these people that do do job work, they basically they send out hundreds of applications. Tell us, why did you title the book the way you titled it?
Oh my goodness. Well, I want you to do this. For the people who are listening to the podcast, they won't be able to see it. So I'm going to talk it out as a demonstrator for anybody who's here live with us. So if you were to grab your hands, do this with me, Chris, put your hands like this, like those parentheses. And shamelessly, it's almost a whisper. So shamelessly, I cup my hands around that word. I go to unignorable, and it's all bold and big. And it's the playbook, less talented, skilled, and experienced competition like me. Cup the hands again. Use it to land the jobs, clients, and contracts you deserve, and how to apply it to yourself, again, cupped. The whole reason why I'm doing it is I'm trying to share with everybody the understanding of how this whole entire thing works. There are actually multiple meanings in when you read it. You can actually read it with only the cupped part, calling it shamelessly, like me, and how to apply it for yourself. Because a lot of people are like, how did you do that? So that's what I'm sharing. I'm sharing, how did I do that? And then there's another piece of it, which is just unignorable, the playbook to land the jobs, clients, and contracts you deserve, because that's what people want. So it's multiple meanings in it, and there actually plays a lot into how the concepts are unfolded. And it also plays a lot to how this thing really works in the real world. That a lot of things you think or a lot of the ways that you've been taught are completely the opposite of the way it works. And there are little bitty secrets that when you hear them, you won't be able to unsee them, but you're going to fight them. You will literally fight some of the guidance because some of the guidance is going to be completely opposite of the echo chambers of social media. It's going to be completely opposite of what you ever learned in school, what your parents told you, what all your friends around you are telling you, just like you shared about everybody sending out 100 resumes. I said, if you're sending out 100, you are doing it wrong.
Wow. So tell us about your background. How were you raised? How did you get in the fields that you're in and to where you are now?
Well, going the way that most people think about it, like a resume, let's actually just go in reverse. So for the past 3 years, I have been completely focused on honing this process and testing and proving it out. So I partnered with a guy by the name of Kevin Rogers. He is the founder of Copy Chief, which is the international network for freelance copywriters. He literally has been doing this for 10 years. He's taken people across the 7-figure mark. And it was a great place for him and I to make sure the processes worked and look at it from both sides of the field, because he's been working with people who've been trying to get hired for 10 years. And he knows all the psyche, the challenges, and all the problems that they face. And what I brought was the person who hires them. In that perspective, when we put it together, it became a secret sauce of goodness. And prior to joining with Kevin, then what I did was I actually certified as a job development and transition coach. So I have the ability to take people who, again, with skill sets and put them into like Fortune 100 jobs. So I was working with one of the preeminent executive recruiting firms, and we tested out the process there, and it worked as well. Before all of that, I spent time officially working my way up the corporate ladder to become an executive in aerospace, which is pretty crazy considering where I come from. And before that were the inklings of what set the groundwork for why I do what I do, because one of my first jobs, I worked in recruitment and I helped people to get jobs. And by interviewing so many people and working with the employers, it's really a different way of looking at things, because each of them is looking only at what they do. Being the third party in interviews, you get to see something that's crazy. Neither one of them see each other. The person interviewing is so focused on the questions they're trying to ask, and they know they can't ask the question the right way. That's another problem, is people are horrible at interviewing, and they ask questions the wrong way, and they get frustrated as the interviewee answers the question that they asked. The interviewee is so focused on what they want, which is, I want this job, I want this job, I want this job. They don't even hear the nuance between the questions being asked over and over again in different ways to try to finally get that answer. So by seeing that from afar and then using that was a big secret to how I was able to skyrocket up the ladders, because I got to understand how those things worked, and I got to see every bit about what people do wrong. And oh my goodness, they do so many things wrong.
And you help them with that in the book. You list out some of the different things that go on with that and how they can do it better. And tell us about some of the services you offer on your website and things you do for people.
Well, the greatest thing that I can do for anyone is to stop them from doing the things that are killing their opportunities. I do that in a few different ways. I've been on stages from LA to Dubai. So I preach this message anywhere I can. So I do public speaking and sharing this message for everybody to make sure that there are audiences, and there will be a lot of audience that need it, this message. I provide mentorship for the people who literally want to understand they're tired of being frustrated, stomping around, cussing and fussing about why they don't get the jobs. And we just worry about how they are going to use this playbook to do it. And the other thing I do is I spend a lot of time, because I'm that kind of nerd, I'm a junkie for data, because I'm constantly in this battle in my brain. I hate theory. I hate theory with a passion. So I find the facts and figures and everything to support not only my arguments, but whenever I'm working with a client, I find ways that we can push forward how to ensure they aren't caught in those imposter markets with facts, figures, and undeniable proof.
There you go. I mean, it's finding a job is one of the most important things you can do, especially a good job. You have something you call the three-dimensional problem that makes what you do so important right now. Tell us about what that is.
Well, revisiting that one, then that's that triangle that I started off with. And I was sharing about layoffs or any time that people are losing jobs. Then we mix that with the fact that jobs have always, it's not just now, even before AI entered the picture, there's always been a move to eliminate jobs. As a matter of fact, one of my earlier positions when I was working up the corporate ladder was outsourcing things to Mexico. I went to Mexico, I went to China. I've outsourced things all around the world. And I've seen how those decisions are made and the good and the bad related to them. Then that third dimension of it is the difficulty because our population keeps growing, period. People keep having these crazy things called more people. And as they keep having more people, there are more of these people who are competing for fewer of these resources. And that makes people do things that are a little bit out of their nature, which is when these imposter markets come up because they start lying, they start trying to find ways to be better than the other humans that are looking for these positions.
There you go. There you go. What's the single biggest mistake job seekers and freelancers make that make them overlooked before they're even considered?
Well, the single biggest thing that they do whenever it's about getting jobs is they are instantly ignored. Everybody uses this word ghosted, right? I get ghosted. I keep hearing crickets. Nobody's talking back to me. I'm sending my resumes into a black hole. I'm pitching if I'm a freelancer. I'm pitching these services and nobody gets back to me. The single biggest reason is because they may as well put a sign up that says, I'm just like everybody else. And if you walk into a room and everybody was wearing gray and everybody was walking the same, talking the same, doing the same things, what would you do, Chris?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't know who to hire. I'd have to try and figure out who the unique people were, or I don't know. Yeah, who the people are that are good employees.
Well, you hit on something super important. You've hired before, right?
Yeah.
People do not realize the problem and the frustration is not on the job seeker side. It's on the hiring manager side. Hiring is one thing that people hate to do. You don't hire unless you have to do it. Nobody says, oh my goodness, I have nothing better to do in my life. So let me just go ahead and talk to random strangers and figure out if one of them can come and either help or destroy my business. That sounds like the greatest thing on earth, right? Doesn't it sound like a perfect thing to do?
Paradigm I haven't looked at yet when hiring, but that's true.
It's a horrible experience, which people only do because they have to do it. And no one really ever takes that time to push back and think about the horrible experience and the necessity on the side of the person who's doing the hiring. Everybody's just, I need a job. I need to pay my bills. I need to eat. I need to take care of my kids. And they don't ever push back from the table for just a second and realize if you were to take a breath, think about that person on the other side and what is their experience, it would completely be the game changer. The game changer among game changers is finding out what they won't ignore. And that's what I really focus in on. You being the best version of you. Another fallacy of, you talked about the single biggest. Could I share one more that is really big?
Please do.
Another big one is people do not show up as who they are. So they've been told, and I see all of these articles all the time, when it's okay to lie on your resume, when it's okay to lie in an interview, when it's okay to lie. I see them and I have this whole giant stack of them and I just look at them and I just shake my head because they're telling them the complete opposite of what will work. And it doesn't work for two different reasons. Number one, you started off and you shared about how you look at this resume and you are looking at this person, you say, this is not you. What I'm reading is not you. So even if that was the perfect person, what is the probability of you hiring that person if what you see and the person you actually physically get to meet, which always happens, if they aren't a match?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen, right?
Not going to happen. In the book, you also talk about something called tequila math. Tell us.
Oh
What
my
that is.
goodness. So that's one of the Robisms. So the book is full of Robisms, and Robisms are simply easy ways for you to get the message and to make sure that it sticks. The tequila math revolves around exactly what it is, tequila math. So here's how tequila math works in our lives. So if you take a shot of tequila, you say, "Oh my God, that was fun," because you normally take it with people. You're laughing. You're at a bar. You're at a restaurant, and everybody takes a tequila shot. And you're like, "Oh my goodness, that felt great, and I'm feeling great about this." And everyone around me, we're wonderful. So you say that was a great way to get the party started. So what do? You repeat it. You say, "Okay, let's take more tequila shots. Oh man, wow, and I feel even better." So what you do in your brain is you project into the future and you think, if I keep doing the same thing, the same way, it's just going to keep getting better. And it's not. Eventually, there's going to be this moment where not only does it not work, you actually feel worse than what you started off from. And that's what a lot of people do in their job progression. They got hired. I'm gonna use the scenario that I use with many of my clients. I say, if you get hired at McDonald's, you get hired in spite of what you did. You can fill it out wrong. You can fill out the application wrong. You can misspell your name. You can do so many things wrong and you will still get hired. Therefore, in your brain, you say, well, all I have to do is just go and put an application and I'm going to get hired. So you have tequila math. So then you figure out, okay, well, they said, no, you need a resume. Okay, well, somebody help me with a resume or find some template. I fill in my name with it. I pass it on. But because I'm young in my career, then they still hired me in spite of what I did wrong. So then I advance. And what happens is I keep on using these horrible tequila math techniques to advance. And I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. I know how to interview. I know how to make a resume. No, you don't. Because the game has changed. Because you don't understand each thing we ever do has diminishing returns. And at some point they just stop working.
There's always diminishing returns. You gotta love watching out for that. But yeah, doing the same thing over and over and expecting and not getting the results you want, but expecting different results is the way to failure. That's for definitely sure.
For real.
You talk about replacing problematic O with a powerful A. What does that mean in the book?
This one right here is one of those keys that completely changes the game when you get to talk to a person. It's helpful in those first touches, but this one right here is the difference between them trusting you and not trusting you when it comes to an interview or a discovery call for landing a client. Think about this word, Chris. P blank INT. If you put an A in there, it's called paint. And that's what most people do in an interview. What they do is you ask me a question and I start to paint this picture and you don't know where it's going. You don't know if it's going to be good. You don't know if it's going to take forever for me to get there. So you get frustrated. When you ask someone a question and they start telling you a story, you don't know if it's going to be 1 minute, 5 minutes, or 5 hours, and you start getting anxiety. You're like, oh my goodness, where are they going with this? What are they going to do? So it literally destroys your credibility because they stop listening. They start thinking about, oh, I got to pick up this and on the way home. And they don't worry about because they don't know where the story's going. However, if you replace that A with an O, a very powerful O, then what happens is you get to point to a thing and they get to instantly see it. By instantly seeing, you know where we're going, and it completely allows you to feel comfortable. We believe things in the past. We do not believe things in the present or the future. If I tell you what I'm going to do, you say, yeah, that sounds really good. But if I share with you what I've done and I point to it, if I point to an accomplishment, if I point to an achievement, if I point to where I've been, which you can check, all of these things allow you to feel comfortable and to build trust with me. If I start describing something or painting you a picture, I may be Michelangelo or I can be a toddler.
So what do you, there's another thing you talk about in the book called the and principle. Tell us about that.
Well, the and principle is super simple. Of all those principles, it's the easiest one for anybody to understand. Most people approach someone with a resume or they go to an interview or they pitch someone. When they do it, they say something thinking it means something. And the other person either says it out loud or in their brain says, and an example, well, why should we hire you? I went to Harvard. And that person says, because I went to Harvard. They think that someone else understands what that means. And what? What does it mean? Well, I went to Harvard, and Harvard's hard to get into. Okay, and I got in. Okay, so, and what happened? And I finished. And then by that time, that person says, okay, if you give a person a situation where they get to 4 ands and you haven't really answered their question, you may as well pull up your arm and salute because you are gone. There is no way they are going to deal with you. So what we do is we prepare and we ensure that the answers that we give are truthful but powerful, and they leave no question about and. So if I were to come to you and I said, hey, I'm going to deliver you a playbook, less talented, skilled, and experienced competition like me uses to land the jobs, clients, contracts you deserve. What is their end? You don't ask can, you ask, how are you going to do it for me? The greatest words that could ever come out of someone that you're looking to be hired from's mouth are, how can you do that for me? That's not an and. That's an epiphany moment where they see a future with you. And instead of the and, which is a sticking point, they're moving on to the, how are we going to make this thing happen? Because you will stop me from the death and hell I'm in, which is called hiring.
There you go. And it's kind of interesting how that party wants to get out of it as well, the hiring party. It's a challenge interviewing people and, having that sort of authoritative, like, who are you and why should I hire you and give you my money? But it's a big deal because, we found out in our businesses that, hiring right and spending the time doing multiple interviews made all the difference in hiring the right people. And when we quit just hiring people over one interview and we started having interviews of 3 or 4 times, what was really interesting is they you really find out how laid back people get by the 3rd or 4th interview, and you really start finding out about them. Like the first interview, they show up in a suit and they're like, they have a very
stodgy,
formal sort of presentation, and then by the 3rd interview, they're showing up in their pajamas with some thongs and they're putting their feet on the desk and they're telling you about their prison time and the one time at band camp, and they're just telling you all the horror stories that you're like, oh shit, it's a good thing we had 3rd interview because we just you just got laid back enough to tell us what we wanted to know. So there you go. What do you think the number one thing is a lot of job seekers fail at today?
The one thing they fail at, we've hit on the subject a lot of times just in different ways during this conversation. The number one thing is they kill opportunities. And I use that word not in a small way. I'm being very serious. They kill opportunities. And that's another Robism where I call it panic pitch. So they see either the perfect job and they're, I have to apply right now. And they send that thing off. And they didn't put any thought into doing that right. It would have literally taken them maybe 15 minutes to take a breath, to figure out what would be the best way to approach that position. But they just panic pitch. Oh my goodness, I got to get in first. I have to put it in front of someone. And they don't realize you only get the opportunity either once every 6 months or once a year to make your bid in that thing. Because the way that the systems are designed now, they see your email address and they actually say, no, this person has already applied. This person already has a resume in our file. And they only purge those things either every 6 months or a year. And if you panic pitched to your perfect opportunity, you have just blown it. Not to mention, that's what I was sharing earlier about the people who are sending out 100. They are destroying 100 opportunities either a day or a week because of the way that they're doing it. And then there's this other person who is the 100 pitcher. It's because they're just so frustrated in this situation, and they've just almost mentally given up, and they just think that, and they've been told it's a numbers game. Just keep shooting them out. Just keep shooting them out. Just keep shooting them out. And eventually someone's going to bite. That used to work because people were desperate for people. When people are not desperate for people, when there is a massive number of people versus a limited number of positions, they will not, again, tequila math again, I can just apply to anything, it's going to work. No. There is a screening process that's happening now. And the people who are just rapid fire throwing these things out, they're killing opportunities. So something important that I share in Shamelessly Ignorable, and the first thing I share with anybody when I work with them is I understand you're going to feel a little bit of frustration, a little bit of anxiety. I will never make you wait to apply. However, I'll ensure that you apply properly and you apply to the right things. When we think about, can I share the greatest analogy about the hiring process? And that may be what helps your listeners the most, because they'll see it through a different lens that they maybe never saw it before, and it will completely send the light bulbs flashing in their heads. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
All right. Job hunting is like dating. It is completely. And as a matter of fact, that's where a lot of the conversation go. I said, consider this like dating. Now, whenever there's dating, then it has two sides of the equation. And what you cannot do, you cannot name the person that you must date. So when I begin with someone, I share, hey, you can pick a person and we're going to define all the traits about them, but you cannot, other than the first time you give it to me, you can't give me a name. We're going to take that person's name and we're going to pull all the traits of the things that you want, and we're going to define who is your perfect match. Because that perfect match is out there. The fact you have desire in your heart for this, and it means that person is out there. And most people are not looking at jobs like that. If they would look at it like that, they would see, oh my goodness, that person wants me because I have certain traits just like that. What you can't do is you say, oh, no, I have to get this person. But you can find the traits and then you start to align jobs that match all those traits. And instead of shooting out to 100, you're going to shoot out to a handful or a couple handfuls that really match who you are, that want who you are, that are going to make this thing a match made in heaven.
There you go. So as we go out, give us a pitch out for people to order up your book, a pitch out to how they can reach out to you, find out more about the services you offer on your website, et cetera, and your .com.
All right. That leads us to acting as though this were exactly an interview and we're trying to get somebody to take an action, right? CTA, big CTA, call to action. And what I have to do is make sure that call to action is right. But guess what we've been doing for this whole entire time, Chris? We've been doing the little CTA, which is credibility, trust, and authority. During this whole time I've been with you, any of your listeners, they got to understand who I am, things that are fact checkable about my background, or ways to understand who I am in their world and whether or not we are a match. If we're not a match, great. I hope you were entertained. I hope you were educated, and I hope truly, sincerely from my heart, that things work out well for you. If I am that type of match for you, in other words, we talk about the dating thing and we say, oh my goodness, this guy, he speaks my language. The way he looks at these things it conforms to what I believe, then we go into this thing called C plus C minus C equals give me your money, which is the first C that I share with you is confirming. What did I just do? I said, you need to confirm whether or not I'm the right person for you. The second thing is clarifying. So C plus C, the other C is clarifying. I do not do certain things, which I'm going to talk about in a second, but what I did was clarify who I'm for versus who I'm not for. I don't tell you you're wrong, and I don't try to do the last thing, which is minus C, which is convince. I am not in the convincing business. I don't want anyone who feels they need to be convinced to go be on the waiting list for my book, to consider working with me or any of those things. I only confirm that I am making great matches for people who are aligned with me. I clarify whether or not this will be the match they want. I do not get into convincing business. And the last part is they just say, hey, Rob, take my money. And if they want to consider if I'm the right person for them, again, we go back to, you can go to my site, robtillman.com, ROBTILLMAN.com. You could find me on LinkedIn. I am /Rob Tillman. Or if you're really interested in getting that playbook, shamelesslyunignorable.com, and you can get on that waiting list. And I'm going to do some special things for anybody on that waiting list who gets on that thing.
There you go. And when do you anticipate the book's going to be out?
The book will launch on September 2nd, the day after Labor Day. There's a whole lot of reasons behind that. And of course, it's after all the mass layoffs have started to settle down. It's also when the majority of people will be hiring. If you look at the government layoffs, those people are actually employed through September. So they are on leave, and they will be September when they'll be entering the job force. And it's after summer where people do not hire very often. And people have too many things before that they have to worry about other than trying to get hired. So there's actually some strategy there. And I'll reveal some of those things for people on the wait list. I'm going to share with them a lot of these understandings so they'll be prepped for understanding how to hit the ground running with the guidance and a lot of AI tool sets, because my background actually has technology in it too.
There you go. So how to be unignorable in the job market. Thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you, Chris. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And thanks, Ronitz, for tuning in. Go to his website so you can pre-order the book, Shamelessly Unignorable, the playbook less talented, skilled, and experienced competition like me uses to land the jobs, clients, and contracts you deserve, and how to apply it for yourself. Thanks, Ronitz, for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. There you go. Great.